In this episode of the Common Constitutionalist, I was going to speak some more about the San Bernardino shootings, but you know what? Everybody and their cousin is talking about those. I've written a number of articles already about it, explaining some things. Maybe I'll get into a few other little fun facts that no one has touched upon, but I don't know. I think I'll leave it alone and go with a couple of other topics I had in mind. Maybe instead I'll talk about a couple of real conservatives, one being Senate Conservative Fund President Ken Cuccinelli, who we know is a serious constitutional conservative, and he's calling out Republicans in general, Senate Republicans in general, and Mitch McConnell specifically. And I think I'll talk a little bit about my man Ted Cruz and how Trevor Noah, he does news on the Comedy Channel, Comedy Central, as if that's where any serious person's going to get their freaking news. But at any rate, he talks about Yahoo News has an article saying that Trevor Noah laid the smackdown on Ted Cruz for holding a gun rally after a shooting. Believe you me, this is hilarious. So I think I'll stick to those two topics, and my family put up our Christmas tree today, so I'll open with a little Christmas ditty today on the Common Constitutionalist.
You're listening to the Common Constitutionalist, broadcast from an undisclosed location, free from the prying eyes of establishment black helicopters.
Well, it's a little difficult to get riled up after listening to a little Christmas ditty, but give me a second and I'll get there. I love Christmas. Being in New England, I was going to say I don't care for the weather. I hate the weather. I don't like the cold, period, but I love the Christmas season. So I'm trying to stay in the mood, but talking about this stuff, kind of a temporary setback. So anyway, let's talk about Ken Cuccinelli and the Republican Senate, the Republican House, and Mitch McConnell. This is from WND, World Net Daily, and basically it's an article about Ken Cuccinelli going off on the Republican Senate, mainly Mitch McConnell, and saying that the Republican leaders just really don't have any backbone. Well, that's no big shocker right there. That's no news to us, at least. And the article centers around the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, funding for Obama's illegal immigration nonsense, his executive actions, and whether they should be defunded, and they're supposed to be defunded because that's what the Republicans promised us back in 2014 when we gave them the Senate. Remember? Yeah, that didn't take long to get riled up, did it? Woo, baby. So WorldNet Daily writes, with Democrats blocking debate, McConnell agreed to bring a clean bill forward in exchange for listen to this. In exchange for Democrat promises to vote on a separate bill to defund Obama's unilateral November action to legalize 5 million people in the country illegally. Now, where have we heard this before? More times than we can count at this point, where Republicans bring something to the floor or whatever, they institute a bill, and the Democrats, they take a Ginsu knife to it, and then they promise, if you do this now for us, then later we'll do that. Well, later never comes. We know it. The Senate Republicans, Mitch McConnell, they all know this crap as well as we do, better than we do, and they know that the promise will never come. So it's all just a bunch of collusion and lies between the Republicans and the Democrats in the Senate. We all know that. It's all such crap. And Cuccinelli told WND that it's an absolute surrender. A surrender is the primary word that we have been able to associate with the Republican leadership since Election Day. Can you point me to one time that they fought? No. You can't. Not even once. You can't point to one instance where the Republicans have actually fought for something. Much less won anything, but fought for something. He continues, what did they run on? Fighting. Well, if they had run on what they have been doing just in the last few months, there wouldn't be Republican majorities in the House and Senate. Of course there wouldn't, and they know it, so they lie just long enough to get in the majority, because that's what counts the most to these lifelong politicians. All they care about is party. All they care about is status and getting reelected, and they want their chairmanships. It's like Limbaugh's been saying for years and years. That's all Republicans care about, is they just want to be in charge of the big fat purse. They don't care what happens to the purse. They don't care how much money is spent or how much bad legislation comes out of the House and Senate. As long as they're in charge of it, that's cool. Cuccinelli adds that Senate Republicans, both House and Senate Republicans, have failed to deliver what they promised. One of the two most important issues of the election, along with Obamacare, was the president's illegal actions on amnesty. And we conservatives, we all knew how this was going to go down. We knew that once McConnell got back in the driver's seat, he wasn't going to do jack squat. That's just the way it was going to be. And this is what ticks me off about somebody like Rand Paul, who's supposed to be this big conservative, libertarian, whatever. Yet when push comes to shove, who does he support? Mitch McConnell. Why? I don't know why, but it sure seems like it's the old CYA maneuver on Rand Paul's part. I don't know. But no one in their right mind, and somebody like Senator Cruz is in his right mind, never supported Mitch McConnell and called him out for it, as we recall. Cuccinelli continues, they really don't have any backbone, okay? If they had any principles at any point in their political lives, they don't have them anymore. They've constructed their own view in their head of what everybody thinks of them. That's exactly right there, Ken. What they care about most is people thinking that they are nice fellows instead of principled fighters and anything really meaningful. They are scared to death to be painted as mean, and that's exactly what establishment Republicans, moderate Republicans, are all scared of. If some Democrat or somebody in the media calls them mean or calls them a name, they go run and hide under their Senate desk until it all blows over or goes away, and then they have some written apology there. They come out and apologize to the media that that's not really what they meant. They were taken out of context, they were misquoted or some such nonsense, instead of standing up as a principled conservative, which they're not, and fighting for what they believe in, which they don't. Whew! Okay then. Cuccinelli says that negotiating is a skill, and Harry Reid has at least a little bit of that skill, where Mitch McConnell doesn't appear to have any. Boy, ain't that the truth. That little bit of skill that Reid has is still enough, frankly, to outmaneuver the incompetent, Mitch McConnell. I don't know that he's incompetent, Mitch McConnell. He is perfectly competent. He's a mean SOB when he needs to be, but only toward conservatives, never to Harry Reid and the Democrats. So, Cuccinelli says, so instead of getting one surrender and calling it a day, Harry Reid is upping for 2 surrenders. He now also wants the House to surrender. The only way to stop that going forward is to stop surrendering. But you know what? Paul Ryan is a Boehner guy, and I mark my words, he'll surrender just like John Boehner. Sorry, folks, but that's the bottom line. Now, this whole big fight, as you recall, was out after Obama announced his unilateral action in November, and then GOP decided to postpone the fight over funding it until, of course, they got both the House and the Senate. And boy, then they'll be fighters. But you'll see, we're going to fight. Yeah, sure. And then what did they do? They turn around and fund the entire government for 2 years. But they excluded Homeland Security. Okay, well, see, Now they're gonna fight, boy. They're gonna exclude Homeland Security, and they're gonna fight on this one issue. No, basically what they did was took the Homeland Security thing out, and they kicked it down the road until now. That's exactly what they did. And Cuccinelli says it's not that complicated. The defund language should stay in the DHS bill. You need a must-pass bill. They should pass the bill. If Democrats filibuster, that's on the Democrats. And if they filibuster it, then the Cuccinelli says that they should just go out and say that the Democrats have shut down the Department of Homeland Security. And then here we go with the Republicans are going to say, but we never win. Well, if you fight and you know what the subject is, you can fight better. And Cuccinelli is somebody finally is saying what Mark Levin and Rush and Glenn and me have been saying for years, that when you shut down the government doesn't shut down. It just slows down, and not even that much, frankly. Cuccinelli says that 80 or 85% of all the personnel in the Department of Homeland Security are labeled as necessary folks, so they're going to go to work. They're going to be there. You're talking about shutting 15 to 20% of Homeland Security down. That's it. Non-essential personnel. Agents will be out there. Border Patrol will be out there. All these people, all the essential personnel are going to be out there. What it really takes is somebody with the courage that knows the topic to go out there to every show, every press conference, and just keep hammering it away that the Department of Homeland Security isn't going to shut down. It's going to slow down a little bit, and we're going to defund this portion, and that's all. There's going to be there's not border security now, so what the heck's the difference? But at any rate, bravo for Cuccinelli finally bringing this stuff up, finally telling the truth about this crap, and calling out the spineless Republicans and spineless Mitch McConnell. So I guess after all, it wasn't that difficult to get fired up. Whoo, baby.
You're listening to the Common Constitution. Let the truth be known.
Alright, so once again, I've got to get back into the political mode after listening to some instrumental jingle bells. You love it. So, as promised, I'm going to talk a little bit about my man Ted Cruz. Yahoo News writes that Trevor Noah laid the smackdown on Ted Cruz for holding a gun rally after the shooting being the San Bernardino radical Islamic massacre. Not just the shooting. They write, just hours after San Bernardino's shooting, while details were still unfolding, Texas Senator Ted Cruz decided it was high time to invite some of his supporters to a gun rally. Yes, the shooting occurred. Then, what did it say? Hours later, Ted Cruz decided, let's get some people together and hold a rally. A gun rally. Yeah, that's the way it always happens. They don't print up flyers weeks ahead of time. They don't send out invitations and invite people and whatnot weeks ahead of time or a month ahead of time or whatever it happens to be. They do it hours ahead of time. That's it. That's the way it always works, right? That's the way these rallies work, you bunch of morons. They continue. The rally earned the GOP presidential candidate the honorable title of a-hole. He didn't say that. He said the whole thing. From Daily Show host Trevor Noah. Wow, that's really great. Trevor, what a journalist he is. Yes, the Daily Show on Comedy Central, where all the uninformed morons of the country go to get their news as if it's gospel. Yeah, that one. Noah apparently went on to lament Mitch McConnell's inaction regarding gun control, and that he feels for President Obama at this time of the mass shooting, that is. Not once ever did he mention terrorism, Islamism, Muslims, nothing. It's just the mass shooting, naturally. And naturally, he blames McConnell's inaction. Yeah, that's a hot one. But then old Trevor claims that not everybody has been inactive. In fact, some politicians have been a little too active on the matter. One such politician is Ted Cruz, who just hours after the shooting invited supporters to a Second Amendment rally at a shooting range in Iowa. Oh, my heavens. What a time to celebrate the Second Amendment, when it could have actually done some good for the people in California to defend themselves against these maniacal, radical Islamists. Noah says, yeah, 14 people just lost their lives in a shooting, and Ted Cruz's first thought is, that reminds me, gotta send out invites to my gun party. He says, that seems like something you'd only do if you were an a-hole. What a jerkwad. And then he goes on to explain, and actually, to be honest with you, Ted Cruz could probably use this as a campaign commercial, verbatim, frankly, where Noah describes Cruz as a radical conservative, a budget-slashing, anti-immigrant climate denier who shut down the government over Obamacare. Oh, and who also opposes expanded background checks for guns. Although, didn't I hear that Josh Not So Earnest, the White House spokesgeek or dope, say that the gun laws wouldn't have made any difference in this particular case? He slipped up and said that, and no doubt he was taken to the woodshed and slapped around a little bit by the Obamites. But sometimes the truth does slip out, even with Democrats. And has already been established is that the expanded background checks wouldn't have worked. What would have worked is if we were able to track these guys instead of the political or correct bullcrap that we have to attend to or contend with, that we're not allowed to track these guys. He went overseas several times. He's been radicalized. He's just who knows who he's been seeing at his mosque or the Islamic Circle of North America, or who knows what he's been up to. But I guarantee you that if we had to track this guy, he would have been on some sort of watch list. And this probably could have even been prevented if we were allowed to do our jobs. The police, the investigatory services, FBI, who knows, NSA, whatever, if they're allowed to track the correct people, this may not have happened at all. But that's no news to Trevor Noah or the low-information morons that watch this guy. And then old Noah goes on to describe how hated Ted Cruz is, that he's the most hated guy in the Senate, that all the Republicans and the Democrats hate him, not just the Democrats. And frankly, that Cruz wears that, as he should, as a badge of honor, not for anything else. He's hated because he's so doggone effective, and he doesn't back down, and he fights for what he believes in, which is the Constitution and limited government. That's what we all should be, that's what all these morons should be fighting for, but they don't, and Trevor Noah doesn't like that one bit. He then plays an audio clip from an old freshman college roommate at Princeton of Cruz's. His name is Craig Mazin, and he's a leftist filmmaker, who said that he hates Cruz, he hates his policy, but he more hates his personality. And apparently that's important because we don't elect people on anything but it's a personality contest, it's a popularity contest now to run for president or for any office. It doesn't matter what your policies are, it's how well you're liked and how much fun you are, whether you play the saxophone on air or whether you go on all the talk shows and you act like the idiot that you are, like Obama did, and continues to do. Then he also played a clip of Cruz saying that the overwhelming majority of violent criminals are Democrats. And then he laughs and says that Cruz is an idiot and that was a lie, and to which the genius Trevor Noah says that actually ex-cons don't usually register to vote. Well, of course, Cruz didn't say they were ex-cons. He just said that they were violent criminals. And the fact is that most violent criminals are leftists. And if they're not, they may not even be registered to vote. That's not what he said. He just said that they were Democrats because they believe in Democrat policies of redistribution, giving everything away, welfare, food stamps, all these other giveaways, and then they probably take their food stamp money, go to the nearest trunk of a car in Chicago, buy a Saturday night special, and shoot somebody dead. So as I said, frankly, Trevor Noah has probably done Cruz a great favor, and if it were me, I would take some of these clips about what Trevor Noah thinks is bad about Ted Cruz and make it into a campaign commercial, because that's what people are looking for. They don't mind Cruz. Obviously, they don't mind Cruz being the most hated guy in the Senate or in Congress, period. That could explain the reason why he's rocketing up the polls, is because people want an outsider. People want a fighter. People want a guy that has good policy, who's good on the issues, not some guy with a sparkling personality who will say all the right things, and then after he's elected will do absolutely nothing to further the conservative or constitutional agenda, which is what we get every time when we elect moderates. Or actually, they don't get elected. What they do is they win the nomination by bashing conservatives, and then they go on to lose the election almost every time. Frankly, the only reason why George W. won was the fact that he faked being a conservative, and then after he got elected, governed as a progressive, who he is or what he is. And that is why Ted Cruz is so hated in the Senate and Congress and by Democrats and the establishment alike, because he does stand for something. He doesn't back down. He'll fight to the bitter end. He'll shut the government down if need be. Oh, brother. And that's why people hate him, because he's effective. That's simple. So real quick before I go, I did want to add a couple of things about this radical Islamic massacre that happened at San Bernardino, and this Syed Farook guy and his skanky wife. Looking into this a little bit more, it's interesting what I found out about that area, frankly. Within about a 50 mile radius, there's the Islamic Center of Riverside, which he attended, the mosque, which he attended. I couldn't find a whole heck of a lot on that because it seems to be a relatively small center relative to some of these other humongous mega mosques. But within 50 miles is the Islamic Circle of North America. They're in La Mirada, California, and that's about, maybe, like I've said, about 50 miles away or thereabouts. And you know who actually came from Riverside, California? Remember the American Islamist Al-Qaeda guy, Adam Gadahn? He did all these interviews and did all these pressers and whatnot for Al-Qaeda. And I think he was just killed back at the beginning of this year or something like that. Well, he was from Riverside. As a matter of fact, he was a farmer, a goat rancher or something with his father. And the interesting thing is I found out that his father they were halal goats, for want of a better term. You know how that's the way they sacrifice, or they don't sacrifice, but they slaughter animals in halal regimen, is you point the animal toward Mecca and you slash its throat, and that's the way you kill it. That's the way you kill the animal, and those are the halal rules. And this guy, his father, actually did halal meats, goat meat. Didn't know that, but that was right in Riverside, and that's where this Farook guy attended the Islamic Center in Riverside. Also, did you know, because I didn't, that there is a little, what's called in Anaheim, which is again about 50 mile, it's about a 50 mile radius for all these places. In Anaheim, there's a place, you got Little Italy and Chinatown and Little Korea and the Little this and Little Havana and all those places. Well, in Anaheim, there's a Little Arabia, or some know it as Little Gaza. And I don't know if it's a no-go zone or not, but it's Little Arabia. And all the streets are halal this and halal, the shops and whatnot. And like I said, it could, for all I know, it is a no-go zone. I have no idea. But I just thought that interesting that within a 50-mile radius of where this guy lived are all these Islamic centers and little Gaza. I couldn't believe it. Well, I suppose I could believe it, but I don't think anyone's really looked into this. And it may be nothing, frankly. I don't know. But the Islamic Center the Islamic Center of North America in La Mirada also had, they promote in their library, they have a preferred reading list, and there are guys, radical imams from the Muslim Brotherhood, the founder of a Pakistani Islamic group. It's interesting because his skanky wife was from Pakistan. He went to Pakistan. He went to Saudi Arabia twice. He was never tracked. He was never followed. Nothing. So I just thought it interesting that all these little items that may have nothing, they may be completely disjointed. I have no idea. I just thought it interesting, and I figured I'd bring it out, at least put it out there, just for general consumption. So that's about all I got for today. Y'all have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you next week. Merry Christmas.